Then the other deck for today, called the Snuffles. This is also a character deck. So in the same vein, we are drawing a lot of cards with Ginny and Seamus, and we're using the Fat Lady to get them out. And what we're trying to do with this deck is play a card called Snuffling Potion. This is a spell that says that next turn when our opponent draws a card, they discard the card instead of putting it into their hand. So if we play this card, our opponent can't really gain new cards except by maybe using an effect like Fat Lady that searches cards from their deck. So basically our plan is that we somehow play Snuffling Potion every turn, because if we do, they will never draw more cards, and then they will be left with only the tools that they have in their hand. And the logic is that eventually we can wear down whatever was in their hand, any kind of counterplay they had there, and then basically they will be completely locked because they don't have access to more cards. You may ask then, okay, how do we recycle the Snuffling Potion? Well, we are playing 4 copies of Hannah Abbott, and she can get 2 cards from our discard pile back by discarding 2 cards from our hand, as mentioned in the other deck. There is basically a loop that you can do with this deck. There's a card called Impersonating Goyle. So it requires 5 power, and it allows you to choose a character in play and discard it, and then you can get a character from your deck into your hand. You may think that this is supposed to be used on your opponent's cards, but in this deck you mainly actually use it on your own Hannah Abbott, because characters are unique, so you can't play another copy of the same character until you get rid of them. If you play Impersonating Goyle on your own Hannah, you can discard the Hannah you have in play, and you can use the Impersonating Goyle to search your deck for another Hannah. Then you can play that Hannah and use her effect to get back both Snuffling Potion and Impersonating Goyle, which means that you will be able to repeat this next turn. Now you may note that this costs 3 actions to do, so it will take up your entire turn if you have 3 actions per turn, which you will normally have with Seamus Finnigan. But there will be turns where you simply draw into the Snuffling Potion, and that means you're going to have an action left over to also develop your own board by playing things. So there is a way for you to close the game out. And another way that you can do that is by playing Moaning Myrtles Bathroom, which gives a player an extra action for their turn if they have at least 2 characters in play before their turn starts. So it's a location and affects both players, but normally because your opponent can't draw cards, you're sort of not that concerned about your opponent getting extra actions. And this allows you to easily do the loop with Hannah, but also play the cards that you need. In order to finish your opponent off, in this deck we are using, just like in the other deck, we are using creatures, Mandrake. I will mention that, as I've said before on the channel, my experience with the game has been largely isolated from public discussions about the game. And there was a thing that I had missed because of this, which is a combination between Snuffling Potion and a card called the Burrow that I thought I would show. The Burrow is a location that says that before each player's turn, if that player has fewer than 4 cards in his or her hand, that player draws cards until he or she has 4. So in the case where you can play Snuffling Potion and your opponent has less than 4 cards, that means that they will discard their entire deck, because they will keep drawing cards and they will never reach 4 cards. So they will just keep discarding cards to their discard pile with this combination. However, I haven't really tried this combo, so that's something for the future that I could show this, maybe a deck that features this combo, but I'm not sure that it's really needed or that it would be better. Instead, we're playing a quite simple solution in just playing creatures. Again, creatures do basically infinite damage as well when you have your opponent in a lock, and the Burrow would require opponent to have less than 4 cards in their hand to work, and we may not always be able to get them below 4 cards. So using creatures is quite a simple solution. So I still like this, but there is some potential with the Burrow that could be explored in coming streams. Other than that, we are playing Bundimun Ooze, which forces our opponent to get rid of a creature or item they have in play and discard it. And then they take damage equal to the discarded card's power cost. This is just because we need a way to get rid of creatures if they have creatures on the board. Because if we return the creatures to their hand with a card like Quirell, they can always just play them again. We have no way to permanently get rid of creatures with our character cards, so we need some spell card to do it. So Bundimun Ooze is there for that. We of course are playing Draco Malfoy because he can discard cards from our opponent's hand. So once we are preventing them from drawing more cards, we can play Draco Malfoy to discard the cards that they actually do have that are important. So maybe they would have a card like Deboning that prevents us from playing our Snuffling Potion. Well, before they get to play it, we could play Draco and discard it, and then they would be completely out of options. We have Filch, of course, to protect against adventures. And then some common choices like Quirell just to buy some time in the early game. Sprout to provide power and be a character. Just Mc Gonagal is always good at one copy at least to get rid of an adventure. We have, of course, Snape, who provides us the potion's power but can also heal us to make sure that we don't run out of cards while we're doing this infinite looping. And Madam Pomfrey as well, same thing. She can heal us, except she doesn't provide a power. Marcus Flint gets rid of 3 cards in our opponent's hand once per game. They choose the cards discarded, but this can be useful when they're at a low card count and we play Snuffling Potion. We can get rid of the last few options that they have. And this can also be very useful, especially against non-character decks early, to limit their amount of counterplay options. And again, Dean Thomas for some extra draw. Yeah, I believe that's the entire deck. So again, this is also establishing a lock, but using Snuffling Potion instead. And now we're going to see which one is better, I suppose, because these decks are going to go head to head. And we also want to show some other matchups between these decks.